The war in Gaza is casting a long shadow over the US primaries, and the primary just concluded in Michigan shows just how long a shadow this potentially could become. And that shadow is falling far more heavily upon President Biden than on the candidates in the primaries of the Republican Party. The primaries, which are of course the vote across states to elect a nominee for the presidential election due in November, are following quite different paths in the two parties. For the Republican Party, the primaries are now a straight contest between Donald Trump and Nikki Haley, perhaps not for long, because as numbers go, this is turning out to be a non-contest. Trump is way ahead of Haley, and he's been increasing his margin of votes in every primary so far. But you do have, at least notionally, at least currently, two candidates here until at least the bunch of primaries due around Super Tuesday of next week. Among the Democrats, President Biden has no visible rival to speak of. He's up against, really, well, himself. The Michigan primary showed exactly how Biden won the majority, but a record number of voters chose the option of uncommitted, a vote not for another candidate, a vote not necessarily against Biden, but certainly a vote very deliberately not for Biden. Michigan is unusual for its record number of Arab American voters who ticked the box for refusing to endorse Biden over what they see as his strong support for the Israeli war on Gaza. Biden still got more than 80% of the vote, but it's a razor's edge contest coming up in the presidential election in many states. Biden could hardly ignore such a sizable vote against him from within the Democrats, even if such a vote were to be cast passively. Winning Michigan, for instance, will be crucial in the November elections. It could easily go either way. Biden won in Michigan in 2020 by about 150,000 votes. Trump won in 2016 by 11,000 votes. Now, close to 100,000 voters have voted uncommitted. The state has seen shifting votes with narrow margins. The Arab American vote alone could turn the result in this key state potentially, but Biden doesn't have just them against him, certainly inclined to vote against him, though it hasn't come to that final vote yet. Overwhelming trends are also apparent now that students are increasingly getting unhappy with the US policy in Israel, unhappy that the US is not prevailing upon Israel strongly enough to secure a ceasefire. The campaign to vote uncommitted is now gathering some momentum also in other states coming up for the primaries, particularly on university campuses, which have been traditionally a strong constituency for the Democrats. Which all makes the current negotiations for a ceasefire critical, not just for the Middle East, not just for Gaza, but for Biden and his hopes of staying on as President of the United States, staying on in White House here. Conflicting reports have been arising over an imminent ceasefire, but the terms of any such ceasefire are not clear, and it's not clear either how long it could last, how effective it will be. Biden has expressed optimism, though his optimistic remarks came by way of an upbeat line spoken to a reporter on way to an ice cream parlor in New York, not the most statesmanlike setting for an announcement as momentous as that. At stake in the negotiations for ceasefire is now also a ceasefire to speak of within the Democratic Party, where Biden stands in the firing line from more of his own than he could allow for, coming up to a tight presidential race ahead.
If Donald Trump is the candidate, Republicans will once again lose the election. We'll lose the swing states, we'll lose the House, we'll lose the Senate, and we won't take anything with us. The Republican Party is fully divided, and you now have factions. You can't win a general election if you don't acknowledge the 40% of Republicans who are saying we don't want Donald Trump. It used to be that Republicans cared about peace through strength. Now we don't see that anymore. Now we see Trump siding with Putin, a tyrant and a dictator who kills his political opponents, who arrests journalists and holds them hostage, and who continues to say that he wants to destroy America. And you've got Trump saying that he would encourage Putin to invade our allies. This isolationist approach that Donald Trump is putting over the party is creating a scenario that puts us further in war, not preventing war.
You're fired. Get the hell out of here. Get out of here. Worst president we've ever had.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump cruised to another primary win on Saturday, easily beating lone rival Nikki Haley in her home state of South Carolina. He had close to 60% of the vote, with 99% of expected ballots tallied, according to pollster Edison Research.
There's never been a spirit like this, and I just want to say that I have never seen the Republican Party so unified as it is right now. Never been like this.
It was the Republicans' fifth nominating contest in a campaign Trump has dominated from the outset, despite facing dozens of criminal charges. The big win will bolster calls from Trump's allies that his last-standing rival, Haley, should drop out of the race. But the former South Carolina governor appeared to have outperformed expectations, with Trump's 20 percentage point margin smaller than opinion polls had earlier projected.
My whole goal for running is because you have a majority of Americans who are saying they don't want Donald Trump and they don't want Joe Biden. So as long as you have a majority of Americans saying, please give us a choice, I'm going to continue to fight. I am not going anywhere.
Haley continued to insist she would fight on, at least through Super Tuesday in March, when Republicans in 15 states and 1 U.S. territory will cast ballots.
And we're headed to the Super Tuesday states throughout all of next week.
However, Trump has already been campaigning as though he was the official GOP presidential candidate as he focused his attacks on Democratic incumbent Joe Biden. Before flying to South Carolina to watch ballot returns on Saturday, Trump did not mention Haley once as he addressed a gathering of conservative activists near Washington, mocking Biden and again claiming political persecution.
I stand before you today not only as your past and hopefully future president, but as a proud political dissident. I am a dissident.
With a massive lead in national opinion polls, Trump could effectively clinch the nomination by mid-March if he continues to win primaries at the same pace, just in time for his first criminal trial, scheduled to begin on March 25th in New York City. Nearly a third of those who voted in South Carolina's Republican primary said Trump would not be fit for the presidency if he was convicted of a crime, according to an exit poll conducted on Saturday by Edison.